All right. Well, we are back for the next exciting adventure in the Reverse event this weekend. And very excited to be here with Griff, the artist, creator, multi-hyphenate, as we've just discovered, for this project of his called Leonard. But Griff, I think before we dive into Leonard specifically, I have become a massive fan of your work just over the last week or so as I've gotten introduced to you. But for those that haven't yet discovered the epic awesomeness of your illustration work and the rest of your work, give us a little background on you.
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you very much for saying such nice things, and you can continue doing that for the remainder of the walk. I'm more than happy to listen to that kind of thing for as long as possible. But, so my name is Matt Griffin, also known as Griff, and I am Irish, as you could probably hear, and based in the west of Ireland. And I have been working as a freelance commercial artist, illustrator for the last 14 years. 2008 is when I quit my former career and decided to jump in and go full-time on illustration. And I work mostly in publishing and film, so a lot of book covers, book interiors, movie posters, DVD covers, that kind of thing. The film side tends to be more key art rather than concept work, but I do dabble in there a little bit every now and again, but mostly the poster side of things. And 2 years ago, I was introduced to the wild and crazy supernova level event for creatives that is NFTs and crypto art. Nobody actually called them NFTs then, it was all crypto art. And life has never been the same since, because I found what I've been looking for pretty much my whole life, and very specifically to the project that we're going to be talking about tonight, because my dream was to take my storytelling. I'm also an author, by the way. I've written a trilogy of children's books that were published. The first one came out in 2015. And after I finished those, I wanted to do something new, but I wanted to do multimedia storytelling that kind of delivered a story in lots of different ways, in any and all ways, really. And that's what I wanted to explore. And it was just a pipe dream until I discovered crypto art and NFTs. And it was like my third eye opening. I suddenly went, oh my God, it can be done. And this is the place for me. And so for the last 2 years, it was actually my crypto birthday on Saturday. It was marked 2 years from my Genesis mint on Known Origin. And it's been absolutely unbelievable. And I've just found home. Like, I'm never leaving. I don't give a shit what markets do. I'm life. Because I just love it. And I love the scene and the vibrancy and the people in it. And it's so inspiring, and it's just awesome. So that's it in a nutshell, really.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, happy crypto birthday. Just about to be. That's awesome. Well, you as you found your way into this crazy world, I think, if I understand correctly, you did your Genesis piece on known Origin. How far between that and kind of the birth of Leonard? And I guess, did the Leonard project, was that kind of the thing that you knew you were starting with, or did that kind of come as you found your way into the space? Give us the little Leonard history.
Well, no, Leonard was not originally part of my plans. He didn't exist in my mind when I started in NFTs. He is a relatively recent creation. So all of the other stuff I've been working on and minting and sharing with people over the last 2 years is work I've been developing since my third book came out. So since 2017. And while I was doing that, I think it was around about last year, maybe last summer, I made an image of this new character, and I think I put out a tweet saying, haven't given him a name yet. I don't know what to call him. And a friend of mine, Genuine Human, Jay Tamamagi, who's a very good friend of mine, made a joke comment below it going, "You should call him Leonard." And I said, "That's it. That is the perfect name for that guy." And what I did then was, it just sort of came to me how perfectly Leonard as a character could fit into the rest of the story universe I've been developing. But kind of different to a main protagonist, in that, how to explain it? Like, he almost like a breaking the third wall type character in the story universe. So someone who can talk directly to the audience, who has an awful lot of mystery about who or what he is, because clearly he's not human. He doesn't like being told that. But, you know, he's not like the other characters. He's very otherworldly. He's in a very strange place. As I developed the work and showed more about where he is, it's very desolate. There's literally just him and these monsters, which he hunts. And slowly but surely introduce the world that he's in to people. And that first image I made of him, I minted that as the first NFT, as an edition on Known Origin. And then what I decided, well, I kind of knew I was going to do this anyway, was the people who collected that NFT would have a say in how his story develops. So I mentioned at the start that this storytelling that I'm trying to do is all about multimedia and multitudinous ways to deliver and tell a story. And one of the methods of telling a story is where the users, like, you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books from when we were kids, which I loved, I'm sure Absolutely. We all loved. So it was like, how about Leonard is my Choose Your Own Adventure part of this wider story universe? And so by collecting his NFT, I started a Twitter community where only holders were invited into the community. And then I would give them options. I'd say, here's where Leonard is, here's what he's seeing, here's 4 choices, tell me where he goes next. And we've been doing that over the last few months, and they keep trying to kill him. It seems everywhere where he's very clear that he does not want to go, they are sending him right in there. And we've reached a point in the story after some traveling, and he's gone to this very mysterious, colossal metal ruin called an engine, and very clearly saying, I didn't want to go to the engine. I most definitely do not want to go inside. They've sent him inside, and he's discovered various mysterious things in there. And it's funny, like I drop little clues in there that connect to other work that I've shared. So if you read the descriptions on any of my mints over the last 2 years, often there are connect the dots and Easter eggs that connect other pieces, even across platforms. There might be a super rare piece which has a little mention of something which you could also see in the description of a Known Origin piece. Because all of these stories are separate realities, but they all link in. And I drop these little clues about it into some of the Leonard stuff, but so far they've decided not to try and pick up on that. They just want to send them into the shit instead of trying to look at these cryptic clues. And, you know, it turns out that the cryptic stuff maybe they're not into, but the fun stuff they are. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's really fun. And it's sort of now, the idea is to kind of broaden it out a little bit now and take Leonard into phase 2. Which I think we're going to chat about at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Well, before we get to that tasty tidbit, first of all, I love the notion that people keep sending him to die. I think, you know, it's sort of like what you're trying to do as a, you know, traditional kind of, in a traditional screenplay or, you know, traditional kind of story structure. You're trying to kind of like keep turning the heat up on your main character, right? You're like, you know, let's keep making this harder for the antagonist. So I kind of love the fact that the community that you built is just like, oh, we're gonna keep turning that dial. You thought it couldn't go past 11? It does. It goes to 27. Oh, you didn't think it could go higher than that? Oh, yes, it does. And now, how are you going to get them out of this? So, what is that process for you as the creator? Like, they send them in there, and then if you weren't expecting that initially, I assume you're creating some kind of piece of art or some piece of the story that's sort of a response to that choice. So then is it your job to kind of figure out how is he going to survive these impossible odds, or how does that process work for you, having received that feedback?
Or you just go the "oh my God, you killed Kenny" approach.
But it could be like, okay, you've killed Leonard, and that's the project done now. Because
thanks a lot.
He's dead, so. Thanks very much. It might create a nice little secondary market for the NFTs, after he's dead or something.
It would be the most meta possible rug pull you could do, right? Oh, okay, I killed him. Sorry, guys.
Actually, I'm writing this down. I like this. Kill Leonard.
Well, you got to know who to blame it on too. So whoever makes that final suggestion. It's
Eben Mac reverse. Okay.
But don't forget, death is always the beginning. So,
right.
You can go so many places once you actually do that. You have no idea.
Yeah. You know what? The problem is also that Leonard is unbelievably hard to kill. It's going to take a lot more than sending him into a colossal metal death trap that's probably crawling with things that want to eat him to kill him. Like he's survived most in his past. But in answer to your question, the first part about how I show where they're sending him is I've been using 3D animations a bit. So when I do another story update, or I say, here's what he's seeing or where he's going, I'm showing them an actual animation, so they get to see what the engine looks like. When he's inside, they get to see what he's seeing. So in terms of delivery, there's these little mini movies that I'm making. And then in terms of how I react to it, like I'd be lying if I said there weren't things I wanted them to get me to do with them. Like I would say I tried reverse psychology. Like I really wanted them. I said last time I went to one of these engines, F all happened. But when I touched it, holy crap, that was crazy. I definitely do not want to touch the engine again. Now, of course, I want them to instruct me to get them to touch the engine so that I can make the stuff I have in my head happen. But no, they don't want to touch it. They want to go inside. And with touching it, I know, but this was different.
Yeah.
And so I have a kind of an idea of where it's going, roughly. But if they don't direct me there, then you have no choice. This is in their hands. It's up to me to just come up with interesting branches off. And now, ultimately, his place in this wider story universe is quite central, and I know what it is.
Yeah.
I hope it never comes out, or it's not revealed for a long time, that the build-up to this is fun and interesting and keeps people engaged. But also that he doesn't die on the way there, and I never get to tell people what his place the wider story was.
Well, you just made me scratch off my next question. I was going to say, what is this larger story world? But apparently we're not going to get that today.
Well, I can tell you some of it. But basically, I mentioned I'd written these books, and they were for younger readers, for 10 plus. And that was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream for me. What got me into being an illustrator and an artist was as a kid reading The Hobbit and seeing Tolkien's illustrations in the book. And I knew from that moment, and I can't remember what age I was quite young, and I was always into drawing, but I just went, I want to create worlds and describe them to people, but also in pictures and words. So I got to do that with these 3 books, and they're very special things to me. And the characters in it, like when I wrote the last paragraph of the 3rd book, I cried. I'm not afraid to admit it. Because you're saying goodbye to, these people intimately, and it's quite hard to say goodbye to them. But what happened was I didn't want to write more children's books, at least not for the time being. I wanted to do something adult, but I didn't want to just straight up write a beginning, middle, and end novel. I wanted novels to maybe be part of it, but it was absolutely multimedia. The idea would be that you could consume parts of the story in different types of media, and that could be anything from a graphic novel, an animation, a series, a game, a board, like any kind of thing you can possibly dream up. And the more you consume, the more you find how it's all linked. So this was my concept, and I had great ideas for gallery exhibitions where it would be quite immersive, you know, where the pieces of art were backlit in a dark room, and that you could also get a small novella on your way in and read the novella and be immersed in the light show. And also, as we were talking about before we came on, making the music, that the music is very much part of the storytelling.
Yeah.
Now, this was before NFTs. So I wanted to do this, but I also had no idea how in hell I would be able to pull that off. Like, it was put on the if I win the lottery list and kind of nearly forgotten about. And I just carried on with my client work thinking it's never going to happen. But I did come up with the premise for a story world that's based on real physics, and it's not a premise that's, untouched. This is something you see across pop culture and storytelling now all the time. But I came up with my own little twist on it, and it would allow me to play in any genre, and also, most importantly, any medium. So I came up with 3 main story strands, which could be 3 among as many as I could possibly dream up. I started developing the 3 strands, which were the Endling, which is another character I tweet about a lot, and I've minted a lot of artwork from that project, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic Mad Max graphic novel, future fantasy, Japanese medieval feudalism meets Mad Max thing with sentient motorcycles who personalities and swords with names and all this kind of cool shit.
Yeah.
Another strand which I've never actually shared out, is called Domum Novum, which is more philosophical sci-fi, more Stanislav Lem and Solaris and 2001, that kind of stuff. And for that, I actually made music. I recorded demos for a concept album that tells the story of that. And some of that music is actually going to be coming out relatively soon in a collaboration with an amazing animator called The Hyena. I'm sure many people listening know their work. I don't know if I was supposed to talk about that. So that may have been
Too late. We recorded it.
We won't tell anyone. It's just between us.
We'll bleep it out.
Okay. It's okay. I'm sure it doesn't mind. But and then the other strand is called High Whale Rook, and this is my kind of wheel of time. And some of the work from that story world that I've posted would be on super rare pieces called Irla of Rin, Eleda of Green Temple, a new one called Dragon Rider. It's my fantasy kind of epic. But what I know is that all of these story worlds are connected, and they all form part of the one narrative. But it could take me the rest of my life to get there, that kind of thing. And then Leonard came out, and Leonard was now the 4th gateway into this one universe. And there are connections and links, and they will be slowly revealed over time. I have not taken a breath for how long?
I love it.
Speaking of that, I kind of want to ask a question that's maybe seems a little off topic, but it's definitely related to everything I know that we're doing with Macroverse. Is just as a creator, right? At some point, you're a consumer and you're listening to music or watching shows or reading books or comic books or whatever it happens to be, and then all of a sudden you get this spark to become a creator, and you're obviously creating many gateways yourself. What pulls you away from creating? And where do you spend that energy when you're not creating? Because when you're not creating, you're a consumer. However, creating seems to be a lot of who you are now, if not before. And I'm just curious how you sort of flip the switch back and forth between as a creator and the types of things that you choose to consume that will pull you away from music, that will pull you away from doing art, you know, um, and specifically that are pieces of entertainment, because we all sort of know that once you start listening to things and they influence you, at some point you have to let that go. And it sounds like you've done that either in the past, you're probably still influenced by things, but I'm curious about kind of the finer details for you as a creator and a consumer, where you see those lines blurring and where you're spending your time nowadays, and how you feel about all
It's a really interesting question. And yeah, like I think creative people are probably even more consumers than most. Like we inhale this stuff. And I always have. Like I think I'm a creator and an artist and an illustrator or whatever, because I'm obsessed with pop culture, fantasy, sci-fi, art, creativity, music, movies, all of it. And I always have been. And I've always just consumed so much of it. And that's what happens. It goes in there, it gets churned around, and then it comes back out, filtered through your own brain. That's kind of a lot of the reason why much of my work stylistically is referencing pop culture. And there's a reason why I'm doing it in an old vintage comic book style, or there's a reason I'm putting VHS noise over this, it's nostalgia, pop culture stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's not answering your question about where I switch off. In terms of switching off without consuming stuff, having wife and 3 kids is incredibly grounding. So when I go home at 5 o'clock, my brain is still going, but then it's basically, okay, like snap out of that now. You need to be a dad. So I do that for a couple of hours as best I possibly can. And the days when they would go to bed and then I just get back to work are gone, thank God, behind me. I spent years and years and years working till 2 a.m, 7 days a week to try and build up this commercial career. Remember, before NFTs, my personal work was a means to get more clients and a means to improve my craft and get better and show people what I can do. But the goal was get more client gigs because they put food on the table. Mm-hmm. Whereas NFTs has totally changed that. Now the personal work is hopefully the food on the table. And so the years and years of doing that, I burned out really hard after a few years. And so now when I get back and after the kids go to bed, I get on that couch and I put on Netflix or Amazon or whatever other streaming services are available. I put on whatever it is. And like, I just, sit there like with my jaw slack, just consuming stuff and trying really hard not to think. And now, as we all know, the spark can come at weird times. And sometimes I'll run out to the hallway and grab my iPad out of my bag, and my wife will go, "What are you doing?" It's like, I've just had an idea. Actually, Dragon Rider is a new piece on Super Rare. That happened just last week. I was sitting watching TV and then I had to sprint out. I had to get the iPad. I had to put it down. But those moments are rare in that I really don't want to work after I get home at 5 o'clock. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that helps. I think it's a really good answer. And it does sound like you in particular as a creator found the balance in that you're probably extremely efficient, which comes from maybe your old client days during, say, let's just say the daytime or the work time. And then you've got the family time, and then the downtime for you, for the most part, is really downtime. And maybe the finer detailed question is, what do you find, is there an aspect of your mind or your heart that you're not creating during that time, and you're literally consuming somebody else's stuff, but then you're okay with that because you might get that spark, like Dragon Riders, for instance, in that moment. Because anytime consuming somebody else's thing, a lot of times can, for some artists, can take away if they're not disciplined enough from their own creative time. And you obviously are wearing many hats, being a musician, and a writer and a family man and a businessman, an entrepreneur and spokesperson. So probably community manager is probably another hat. So, you know, I think that's, you know, an interesting aspect of you have balance, but then there's also, it sounds like not a lot of pull towards, no, I need to keep creating. I need to, you know, spend even the time during the night creating. Those days are kind of over for you because you're disciplined during the day. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, like I'm not a believer in 24/7 hustle. I just because I did it and it broke me. So,
Breaks us all.
yeah, like I think maybe it's just because I'm a bit long in the tooth now. You know, had NFTs happened to me 7 years ago or something, I would have been, yeah, okay, I have to grind now. I've got to work all the hours. Screw sleep. I'll sleep when I'm dead. But now I've experienced the kind of the downside to that kind of lifestyle. And it's not good because it sets you back. When you burn out, that's it. You're not going to create for 2 months. You won't be able to pick up a pencil. Your brain will not feed you anything. And now, like, if I have one superpower, I think it's that I don't run out of, the tap never turns off in terms of ideas. So, like, I've never really I've never had a shortage of ideas. I've had patches where I can't realize the ideas because what I'm making is shit and it's not properly translating the ideas in the way I want them to come out. But I've never ever had a shortage of new ideas. The opposite, it's a torrent. Like my brain is constantly going. I've described it once as like I'm like a puppy or a dog that's thrown into a room full of squeaky toys, like millions of them. And I don't know which one to play with. I want to play with all of them. And sometimes, for that reason, none of the toys get their proper attention and they remain unplayed with. I don't know where I'm going with that analogy, but hopefully
no, it's great.
Oh, brilliant stuff.
Oh,
great. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I resonate with everything you just said over the course of that question. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
The efficiency thing, by the way, because this came up recently in that I have a project, a collection on Foundation called Quickies, and it's a bit of fun. The idea is I have an hour or two to make an image, and the collector of the previous quickie gives me the prompt, and then they also get a 10% slice in the next one that they've prompted. And
that's so cool.
I've had a couple of comments on them going, like, you do this in an hour or two, you know, this might take me a day or two or a couple of days. I'm like, this is 14 years of panic meeting deadlines. You know? I draw quick because I always leave shit to the last minute. And it's like, oh my God. I've done that for years, so I'm very, very fast.
Well, it's also, I mean, I'm going to butcher it, but there's a famous quote about, you know, it's like, I want to attribute it to Picasso, but it may not be him. But you know, it's like, you know, the napkin sketch, which is amazing, and you know, he's done in like 5 minutes, and it's like, you know, I can't believe you did that in 5 minutes. It's like, no, it took me, you know, 20 years to be able to do that in 5 minutes. It's, you know, I think that's so apropos as well. Absolutely. Well, I want to make sure we get to you know, the kind of amazing announcement that you're allowing us to make here today. So, you know, coming off the conversation about Leonard and these interconnected universes, which I got to say, at a different time, you and I'll have to kind of talk about this whole multi-platform storytelling, multi-format storytelling thing, because that is my ballywick as well, and a soapbox that I'm happy to jump onto at all times about, you know, kind of believing that's the future of media in a lot of different ways. So super excited about, you know, kind of how you're approaching all of that. But you've got something really cool coming out in that context to help support the ecosystem and the creators that are potentially kind of collaborating with you kind of through the expansion of these different threads and the kind of universe as a whole. Do you want to say anything before we kind of play the video and go from there?
Well, just in that Leonard as a project is... I'm an impulsive person. I don't really plan things out too much. I like going with the flow, and it's gotten me this far. You know, I've realized now I don't fight it any longer. I don't worry about being impulsive. I just allow it to happen and don't fight it. And Leonard, the whole project has been impulsive from the minute it started. But I felt it was time to take it up a notch and really put some proper gating for the community, some proper rewarding for people who engage in the Leonard story, and rewards for people who love him as a character, and also proper governance over his movements and him as a character. And so for that reason, he is going to have his own drum roll.
Well, dun, dun, dun. I love that video so much.
So much.
So good.
That music kills too.
It
just
kills. And as we discovered before we started talking, you made the music as well, which is double kill. So double tap. But tell us, so this is the announcement of the Leonard Token. Tell us about that and how people can get involved.
Yeah, it's a very evolving thing, right? So this isn't a roadmap. It's not for something to say when whitelist and all this kind of stuff. This is basically, it's a way to reward people who've been interested and backed the project with early adoption. And it's a way for people to kind of properly govern his movement. So when you have Leonard, the token in your wallet, for one thing, it'll give you access. We're moving it from the Twitter community to a Discord. And while I know a lot of people have Discord fatigue, it's just such a superior tool for this type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I have a category for Leonard. I can have channels for the Choose Your Own Adventure game and the voting, channels for fan art, channels for discussing what's happening in the story. So it's just the perfect tool. So you only get access to those channels by holding the token. But the other thing is that you don't need to buy Leonard NFT to get the token. You can also contribute fan art and fan lore and be rewarded with Leonard Token for contributing fan art. So it kind of encourages people to go out there, if they like the character, to make their own art. And that way they can get the Leonard Token and they can join in the game of Choose Your Own Adventure. Down the line, there's going to be other perks. You know, there'll be other ways to spend Leonard. I'm not particularly interested at the moment in Leonard, becoming a valuable currency. I don't want that kind of pressure on myself. I don't want anybody getting wrecked or rugged or any of that shit. I just want people to have fun playing a game of Choose Your Own Adventure with the character. But yeah, so there will be other ways to spend the Leonard and other benefits to having it, and airdrops, merch. I'm going to do some t-shirts, and who knows what else down the line. Like, it's an evolving thing, and this is just the very, very start of it all. This is, I say it's phase 2, but really it's phase 1.2. _ final dot final. And so so you can earn it by by doing your own Leonard art, and then you join in the Discord and have fun. People who picked up the first Leonard NFT will get a nice amount of Leonard airdrop to them as a thank you. People who picked up the second NFT will also get a certain amount, but the idea is to reward the early backers just a tiny touch more. And for the people who picked up both NFTs, they'll get both chunks of Leonard. And then next week, Leonard 3 is going to come out. And Leonard 3 is going to be a timed open edition. And it's going to have Leonard Token embedded in it. Is the plan.
Cool.
So that when you buy the NFT, you also get a chunk of Leonard, and then you can officially join in the game.
So cool.
Yeah, so it should be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And there's just going to be tons more. You know, who knows where it's going to go. But the main point is that it's fun and it's cool, and that Leonard kicks ass, and there will be monsters.
Well, if the bar is it's fun, it's cool, it kicks ass, and there will be monsters, then mission accomplished. And now you can keep going forward. I love it.
Especially with that last line, there will be monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. He has a Twitter account. It's only kind of new because I wasn't really using it as a Twitter account. I was using it to talk to the people in the community, because it's Leonard talking. It's not me. Mm-hmm. And he has a very particular style of speech and talking. He's quite gruff, and he doesn't mess around. And often he can say stuff and it's got nothing to do with me. He can be quite offensive, or not offensive, but just mean. You don't want to screw with Leonard, basically.
That's amazing. Well, Griff, I want to keep talking to you, but we're going to have to kind of wrap up here to jump onto the next show. But I want to, after this next chapter comes out and the Discord is established, I'd love to have you come back and talk a little bit more about kind of the progression of the story and where some of this is headed, and just geek out in general, because I went from a fan of your work prior to this conversation to now a Leonard super fan as well. So I want to see more Leonard.
And now a fan of you. So
yeah,
the person, the man,
absolutely a fan of you, 100%. So yeah. So tell people where the best place to connect with you and to follow the adventures are, kind of at the moment.
So find me on Twitter is @GriffCrypto. And then Leonard, as I mentioned, has his own Twitter account, which he's probably going to start using a little bit more now, and that's @the-name's-Leonard. Because as he was filling out the form, it's like, what's my name? The name's Leonard.
I love it.
That's where you follow on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the way you're thinking about this and the way you're putting it together, and obviously the work is just spectacular. So really kudos across the board, man. It's awesome. It's really awesome stuff. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, yeah, thank you so much for spending this time with us and giving us that special announcement to make here on the show. And gonna have to draw some Leonard myself, man. I'm gonna get some of that voting power.
Please do. I'd love to see it. And thanks a million for having me, guys. Lovely talking to you.
Thanks for being
really
here.
A pleasure. Brilliant. Really a pleasure. All right, we're gonna end right here, but